Alright, boys and girls, we're gonna have a chat about my LS swap that I did in the square body. I left the old manual 3-speed with Bolo transmission in it for those of you that aren't fully up to date on this truck. If you are, thanks for watching the videos. So we're going to talk about this Corvette fuel pressure regulator, and I thought this was the culprit of all my issues, because what happens is at idle and when the pump was run direct power, we were seeing like 68-70 psi even before we start the truck up or anything, and it would do the same thing at idle. So what ended up going on is I did swap this truck, but I haven't put a lot of miles onto it, and it seemed like it was working fine. But when I hooked on my trailer and did the trailer video the other day, if you guys watched, this truck was at best running on 7 cylinders, but I'm pretty sure it was actually only running on 6. So what I did was I hooked my misfire counter to it, and when I went into my misfire data, I can watch all my cylinders individually, and what I was getting was a lot of misfires on 6, 7, and 8. So most generally my experience with these junkyard motors, truck motors, whatever you want to call them, LS's, the fuel injectors are always dirty. It doesn't matter if they have a fuel filter or not. The little cross line going over the intake gets rusty inside and out. If they're run dry fuel, they just kind of rust on their own, but most of the time those are dirty. So I cleaned those when I did the swap, and I cleaned them again after I did the swap, so they've been out twice. And then this morning I actually took this whole row out again, and I didn't find or notice any dirt. The one in the back was a little bit clogged up looking on the inside. There was some fine particles that I couldn't see well. But anyway, you just take the injector, look down in the top of it where the fuel goes. This is a spark plug, I know this, but you look down inside of it very closely with light and you should be able to see what kind of shape they're in. So anyway, I cleaned those, put the truck all back together, still reading high fuel pressure and still having doubts about this fuel pressure regulator for a Corvette, because I read about so many people reporting high pressure. I'm not sure if it's creating a problem. Most of the forums lead you to absolutely nothing for information. So my next step was, I said, well, I have like high performance Taylor high heat wires onto it with heat boots, so 99% sure that my wires weren't the issue. I did throw an extra set on it just to be sure, and it wasn't the issue. I also keep a spare coil, a whole bunch of them actually. It was laying here earlier, but I keep a spare coil usually, and I danced that around to see if I could make the misfire move in the cylinders. Nothing. So then I said, well, I'm going to pull all the plugs out of it. And this truck had these Denso iridium plugs when I bought this motor from a junkyard. And I said, well, I know it's black and tarnished now, but it looked fairly shiny, fairly new. So I said, I'm not going to mess with those, I'll leave them in. So this morning, between cleaning my injectors and switching over these cheap Autolite copper plugs that I had laying in the building, I've got this truck running great. Even though it's still showing high fuel pressure, it's really not an issue, because once you're onto it and you put load onto it, the idle pressure doesn't matter so much. I mean, yeah, there's people that'll argue it does, but it's not going to cause you drivability issues. And if you were able to put this gauge up in the windshield that you could see it when you're driving, I'm sure that when you're at wide open throttle, it's down where it's supposed to be. So with that being said, this wasn't the issue, and this is actually a spare one, because I bought a few of them when I bought them just to have a spare for the truck. And there's a lot of people that, you know, they put the pressure line in the center when the center is actually your return line. The outside line is your pressure in, as you can see here on the label. So like, that's pretty straightforward. I knew that wasn't messed up, because when you run wide open pressure right off the pump, the engine will just start and die. I've already been down that road when we first put it in. So for you guys that are using this Corvette regulator and seeing abnormally high fuel pressure readings, I'll bet you if you're having misfires, P0300 codes, and it really won't shoot you in any direction specifically. You know, if it's a brand new build and you've got all new injectors, all new everything, well, it might be a little trickier to rule that out. But most generally with these LSs, when they make a misfire and they won't show you the cylinder, it's usually most of the time an injector. The trouble was, watching my misfire data, the cylinder that was missing the worst was actually not the one that was the real culprit. In my situation, number 6 was my big issue. The injector was plugged up a bit, and the plug was one of these iridiums that just didn't seem to want to fire under heavy load. The truck would run seemingly fine without the trailer if you were just putting around, not really bearing onto it, but it seemed, I knew something was off. So the truck come along nice the last few days. We got all the hitches out of it. I just sealed these header gaskets up, put the electric fans in it, just mounted my relay right there for it. Got a few miles onto it now since it's been swapped, so I'm pretty happy with it. Now today is the first day I actually had it working 100%, so now that I got this exhaust fixed, I'm pretty pumped actually to drive it the next time. I would start it right now and show you guys this fuel pressure thing, but you can take my word for it that at idle, these things generally, you know, I just put a brand new one on, there's not 5,000 miles on it, and it gives me a fairly high reading at idle and low throttle inputs. But that doesn't justify when you're driving with load on it. And again, this high pressure thing should not cause you misfire issues or anything like that. If you have misfire issues, it's probably going to be somewhere else. Thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe and stay tuned, because there's going to be lots more videos of this thing now that it's working.